Hey guys, welcome in. I'm Brad from College SportsCast, and we are presented by Defend Boys. All right, guys, I'm back. It's Brad with College SportsCast, and today is Selection Sunday. So if you're a college basketball fan, you should know what Selection Sunday is. It's a huge day in the college basketball world. It's when the brackets all released for the NCAA Tournament, and we have a special today. We are about 3 hours from the reveal of the brackets right now, and we're doing a pre-selection Sunday special. We have a special guest on with us. We have Steve Hiegel. He is back with us. This is his third time on with us this season, and we appreciate him coming back on with us. Hey, Steve.
Hey, appreciate you having me, guys.
So how has your weekend been, and have you been watching tons of basketball?
Yeah, I've been watching a lot of games. Unfortunately, there's not as many games on today. Yesterday was the main day, but I don't like how that shift either in the years past.
Friday was pretty fun too, actually.
Yeah, Friday was good. It seems like years past, though, there's so many good games on Sunday, but now a lot of the conference tournaments have shifted their championship game to Saturday. So it seems like Sunday.
They have. Yeah, there's not as many on Sunday anymore as there used to be.
Yeah, but there have been a lot of great games this weekend. Enjoyed them.
Right. So we have, of course, John Roberts with us as well. John's part of the show with us. And Jason, who may join us, he was in Dallas with some recruits or players of his that looked like this morning, sent me a picture. So he may join us a little bit later. I just want to state that he may come in and join us late in the show. He's welcome to do that. So Steve, we have him with us. He is from justcollegefootball.net and justcollegebasketball.net. He runs those and votes for how many different National Player of the Year awards do you vote for, Steve?
Just one, just the John Wooden Award. So
just the John Wooden?
Yeah, men's and women's, though. So we get to vote for the
men's and women's?
And women's, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right, I'm going to have to nudge you to vote for Caitlin Clark on the women's side, maybe.
I think everybody's going to vote for her. I'd be surprised if anybody doesn't vote for her.
All right. All right. I just thought I'd throw that in there.
No, I like that. I like to see the final tally and see if anybody didn't vote for her. I couldn't imagine. So
I mean, everybody's like with South Carolina on the women's side. We'll just throw that in real quick. But everybody, South Carolina is the dominant team. And Aaliyah Boston is the player that everybody knows and talks about, on the South Carolina team. And nationally, fans-wise, I would think just as many people probably know her name as Caitlin Clark's.
Yeah, true.
Probably.
It's funny. They both would have got a lot of competition from the UConn player, Paige Beckers, but she got injured and she was out the whole season. So the interesting
Angel Reese is the other player that I would mention, girls' side.
Yeah, very true. Yeah, remember I'm in Maryland. She was actually at Maryland, and then she transferred to LSU. So
right, yeah. That would be my three that I would mention on the women's side.
Yeah, all great players. But I'd be very surprised if Caitlin Clark doesn't go home with the award. So
listen, I joked around with a guy the other day, and I told him that we're going to try to get Caitlin Clark to transfer to Kentucky for next year. For the boys, not for the girls. She's a junior. Yeah. Yeah, she's a junior. She's got a year left. And most of the time the girls don't leave like that,
Yeah, I thought she already said she was coming back, so I could be wrong.
Yeah. She's a junior, so she's more likely coming back. So I was like, we need to get her in the transfer portal, man. I wasn't talking about for the girls' ball. I was talking about for the boys.
She can shoot it. She can definitely shoot it.
She can. Logo Clark, I'm telling you.
She can shoot it.
She definitely can shoot it. Anyways, that wasn't supposed to be part of the show, but
Hey.
we added that anyway. So we appreciate everybody being on with us. And again, this is Steve Hiegel, and we'll get to the games today. So Princeton beat Yale in the Ivy League championship today. Alabama looked really, really good against Texas A&M and won the SEC championship today. Memphis and Houston is being played right now in the AAC championship. Houston is playing without Marcus Sasser, who aggravated an injury yesterday against Cincinnati late in that game, and I think he's sitting out. So,
and Memphis is doubling them up.
Yeah, Memphis.
Yeah, John said he was sitting out. He wasn't playing. So
yeah, Memphis is beating them pretty easily right now. So
yep.
And then Penn State, Purdue are playing for the Big Ten title. Penn State's made a heck of a run.
And that game should have already started, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it should have started.
Yeah. And then earlier, VCU beat Dayton in the A10, Atlantic 10.
Yeah. Been a weird year for the Atlantic 10 down year as well. I mean, VCU is going to be the only team that's going to get in. Usually that conference
it is. I mean, Dayton has got a decent team, and St. Louis has got a decent team, and I think they'll probably be NIT people, but I don't see them getting in.
Yeah, the only team getting in now is VCU, unfortunately, for that league this year.
Yeah, I don't see them getting in. So speaking of that, we'll just go right into the mid-major misses. Atlantic 10, we were talking about. I just threw out a couple of teams. On the Atlantic 10 side. But I did want to run through some teams that I think have had a really great year. They didn't win their conference tournament and could possibly be missing the NCAA tournament. Bradley is one of them who had a really good year in the Missouri Valley that I kind of wanted to mention.
Hey, Brad. Brad.
Yeah.
We all know that you want to go to the NCAA tournament, but you
I do want to. I do want to go. To the NCAA.
You can only go as a spectator. Okay, you can't play in it.
I'm a little too old to play in it, but I still would like to.
All right, carry on.
All right, in the ASUN, Liberty got beat by Kennesaw State, and Liberty had a really good year this year and needs a mention. However, like I said, these are some major misses, and I don't think these teams are going to wind up getting in the tournament. But I kind of wanted to throw a few of them out there.
Throw UAB in there as well. I mean,
Conference USA's got two of them that I think have had great seasons and are so close. These are two teams, North Texas and UAB, are so close. North Texas is really close on metrics. UAB, if they didn't lose Jelly Walker a couple of in the middle of the season,
can they not just put that in their in their selection? Like, look, they were without Jelly Walker for three weeks.
It's funny because they can, but unfortunately, Clemson just mentioned they were talking about Clemson earlier today, and Clemson's the same thing. Player was hurt. Hall was hurt for several weeks and being the season, and it's just kind of, there's nothing you can do about that. It's unfortunate,
right.
Like saying Jelly Walker, but that's committee takes that into consideration. But still, it's at the end of the day, they're just not going to get in, unfortunately.
Yeah, because as soon as he came in, they started winning again. It was like, oh look, here it is.
They really did have to play better yesterday.
Yeah.
You could make you could have made a more of an argument for him if they would have lost that game by 2 points in overtime or something like that.
Right.
Instead of being walloped.
Yeah. Help them. So
in the MAC, Toledo, Kent State beat Toledo. Toledo had a really good year. Kind of want to throw them out there. Trying to think of some other teams. Sam Houston State got beat in the WAC, and I definitely want to put them out there. Sam Houston State had a really good year, along with Utah Valley in the WAC. Both of those teams got beat out in their conference tournament, and both of them had really good years.
The WAC's a good conference. I mean,
it is.
Doesn't get much recognition, but it's a really good conference. Grand Canyon.
It is. There's like 3 or 4 teams in there that's really, really good teams.
It's a good conference. It doesn't get much mention, but it's a really good conference.
The Sun Belt has got some teams in it, I think. Southern Miss is a good team that didn't get in. Louisiana won the conference tournament. Marshall's got a good team in the Sun Belt as well. So there's a few teams there.
I saw Marshall play earlier this year in person. I thought they were sure they would win that conference, but obviously they didn't.
And they wound up like 3rd or something in the conference.
They had a great team. They had a great year, but
yeah, and they had some really good offensive players on that Marshall team.
I think what you're seeing in difference from years ago is like more and more mid-majors are having great, strong seasons, and the NIT is they're making the NIT a much better tournament. I mean, I don't think as many people pay attention to it because everybody's paying attention to the NCAA tournament, but the NIT is a good tournament.
The NIT is actually going to be kind of fun. There's going to be several good teams, I think, in the NIT. So I think it'll be kind of fun.
It will. I believe it'll start probably Tuesday or Wednesday this week. They'll have a couple games.
Yeah. It starts either Tuesday or Wednesday night, I think. NIT
and then, of course, they stagger them because they don't want it around the NCAA tournament, and they'll have the
it's staggered around like.
But there'll be some good games. Yeah, there'll be some good games on that, and even the CBI tourney. I've seen a lot of mention about that recently, and that's a 16-team tournament.
Well, since we're going to talk about the CBI real quick, I kind of hope Detroit gets a call and Detroit Mercy gets a call.
I just think there's too many good teams and they won't. But I mean, I can see them getting. I can see that reason they would get the call. We'll find out in less than 24 hours. I just don't think they're going to get in.
3 points. He had 4.
Game. I know.
He had 4 3-pointers in the last 2 minutes that missed.
Yeah,
and he needed one of them to tie.
So really, he just needs one game. So even if they go down there and lose the first game, he's going to get it. But yeah, I don't know if they're going to get that invite.
I know the record's not good enough.
There's also the College Insider Tournament. So maybe if CBI doesn't take them, maybe they will. So
yeah.
That all comes down to the school too, because they have to pay a certain portion of money to,
They do. I didn't realize that the CBI you had to pay a portion of that.
I think it's like $250,000, and then of course you got to pay for all your travel. So it's on the school as well, not just on the not just on the invite. So I'm sure they reach out to them in advance and contact them. You'll see the bracket come out in the next 24 hours. So.
Right.
But yeah, it'd be great to see. I just don't know if it's going to happen. I don't know if it's going to.
Well, you know what? Okay, Antoine Davis is 3 points.
I know.
From the all-time scoring record by Pistol Pete Maravich. That's the reason why I said that. So, in case you're wondering and why I mentioned all that, it's because Antoine Davis from Detroit Mercer is 3 points shy of the all-time scoring record, who's been on the books for like 52, 53 years, and nobody ever thought would be broken.
Yeah.
Granted, Antoine Davis has got a 5th year because of COVID, and it was all done. But still it would just be neat to, it was neat to watch him at least have one game to try to go for it.
Yeah, I agree. We'll see. Yeah. We'll see. You'll know in 24 hours. So.
Yeah, we will. All right, so let's get to the power conferences. Most of them ended up yesterday. There's a couple of them that are going today. But so the ACC yesterday, Steve, it ended yesterday. What were some of the surprises that you thought went on during the ACC tournament, and how it turned out with Duke winning?
Yeah, I wasn't shocked that Duke. I was somewhat surprised that Duke won. I thought Miami or Virginia would end up winning it, but Duke's come on strong as of late. I thought North Carolina would make a stronger run because their season was on the line. Unfortunately, they didn't. For the ACC would have given them another team. I think that Pittsburgh. I remember speaking to a couple people on Twitter. I think they're in the tournament. A lot of people said with that Duke loss the other night, they're probably out. I think they're real close to the line, but I still think they're in the tournament. As for the way the rest of the tournament played out, it was pretty much, like I thought it would. I mean, a lot of the top seeds advanced for each game.
I thought Clemson had a couple of nice wins that
they did. They did. I still think they're below the cut line. I think it's real.
Well, so Clemson has, if you look at Clemson, they have everything that they need except for about 4 really bad losses.
True. Yeah.
True. I mean, and that's what's going to keep them out. I mean, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, I think I saw Pittsburgh. I watched the ACC. I don't, it's not the only conference I have to say I watch, but I watched a good amount of the ACC. And I think Miami's got a good case to make a strong run in the tournament. Duke. I just don't see Virginia going far in the tournament. I just think the way they play, and of course they won the title in 2019, but this is a different team. And it's like that Wisconsin style, and it's just so slow and methodical. I don't know. I think they're going to have a tough time getting in the tournament.
I think so too, to be honest with you. I agree with that.
I think they could be going in the first game depending on their draw, because they're probably going to get a 4 or a 5. They get that.
And there's some really good 12 teams.
There are,
and 12 seed teams on the line.
I think they could get more, knocked. I think ACC in terms of going the distance in the tournament, I think Duke and Miami could both make runs. That's about it. I don't think any of the other teams are going to go.
All right, let's get to the Big 12. The Big 12 yesterday, for the second time in a week to 10 days, Texas beat up Kansas pretty good.
True.
to win the Big 12 yesterday. So what are your thoughts and how the tournament went and how Texas seems to manhandle Kansas the last 10 days?
Yeah, I thought Texas played really well. I mean, their coach, he needs to get a full-time gig there. I mean, you got to give him the job now. I don't know what else to say. I mean,
the Texas coach.
Yeah,
I don't even know what his name is, but
Rodney Terry. He's got to get the job. I mean, there's no reason not to give him the job. I mean, now Texas is one of those places that, like in football as well, they it's almost like they want a big name. So I don't know. We'll see if they hold out and see how he does.
I know, but he's held that team together. Not only held it together, they've come on. The last
They look really good. I think I can definitely see them. I can see 2 Big 12 teams getting to the Final Four. I think definitely I can see probably four getting to the Sweet 16. Yeah. I still think Kansas will probably. If I had to pick a Final Four right now without even seeing the bracket, I'd say I put Kansas in it. I think especially if Self's back, Bill Self's back. I mean, assuming he comes back and coaches in the tournament. I know he had some health.
So issues. we have somebody in the chat. Since we're talking about the Big 12 real quick, we have somebody in the chat asking about Oklahoma State. Stephanie Yates says, I hope they still have a chance to make it in the tournament. She says, OK State needs a mention. So I thought while we're talking about the Big 12, I'd give you the chance to talk about Oklahoma State.
I think Oklahoma State's in. I think they're right there on the cut line, but they are in. And it's all going to depend on their matchup if they can win that first game. So they're going to be probably they might be in the first. They're most likely going to be in the first 4 in Dayton. So we'll see who they play. And they played the toughest conference in the country, so they're definitely able to win that first game. And then they're probably going to be against the 6th seed, who you never know who that could be. So right. They definitely should be in the tournament. And I think the best thing for them and another team in that same kind of area is West Virginia. That tough conference is going to pay dividends in the tournament because you play.
I think West Virginia's last couple of wins before the tournament probably put them in.
Yeah, they're in as well.
West Virginia. Yeah,
they're in as well. But I just think that tough conference is going to play out. Even Iowa State looked really good in the Big 12 tournament after Caleb Grill got dismissed from the team.
They did, and Iowa State had to end the season had lost they were 2-8 or something, and then they come on and won. Looked pretty decent in the tournament, I thought.
Yeah, I mean, Baylor kind of looked like they faded a little bit down the stretch, but they have the experience and they won that title in 2021. So I just think the Big 12 in general. I think 4, maybe even 5 in the Sweet 16, and probably 2. I think they could get 2 teams in the Final Four, depending on the brackets and how they shake out. So. And then, of course, you got if Houston makes it to the Final Four, you really have 3 because Houston will be a Big 12 team next year.
Yeah, next year. Yeah.
That's right. We go ahead and claim them now. just like if Oklahoma makes it into the national championship, like they're an SEC team. I mean, because just like last year they played in the championship game against Ole Miss in baseball in the championship series. It was Oklahoma versus Ole Miss. Hey, guess what? We had 2 SEC teams playing for the championship right there. There you go.
Yep.
So
all right, let's get to the Big East. The Big East yesterday, I was like, and I'm gonna start it out with this. I've been saying I've noticed that a lot of bracketologists still have Baylor in that 2 slot, and I've been saying all week long that Marquette should be in that 2 slot above Baylor, in my opinion. Marquette looks great. They won this is their first time ever winning the Big East tournament. Shaka Smart has done an awesome job, and I just wanted to – UConn looked pretty good, I thought, in the Big East tournament. Of course, they ran into Marquette. But I thought UConn looked pretty good in the Big East tournament as well. So what was your thoughts on how the Big East tournament went?
It played out pretty much like I thought it would. I was very surprised by the final score yesterday, the fact that Marquette beat Xavier by as much as they did. But, yeah, I think Marquette's a 2 seed as well. I mean, whether they get it tonight or not, we'll find out. But I think they could definitely be on the 2 line. And, I mean, I think any of those, first couple Big East teams can make a deep run in the tournament. I think they could probably get, 3 or 4 teams in the Sweet 16 as well. I think that's a tough conference, and I think the same thing is going to play out in that conference that did with the Big 12. That night in, night out grind of having to play all those tough teams. Now, granted, it's not as tough as the Big 12. There were a couple weak teams in the conference, like Georgetown, but still, I mean,
and DePaul.
And DePaul even had semblance of life in the Big East tournament. So it's like
they did.
I think 99 out in that conference, those tough teams. I think UConn was playing so well early season. They hit that kind of like lull toward the midpoint of the season, and now they've kind of come back to life. They lost that game the other night, but it was real close. I mean, it could have gone either way. So I don't know. I think Marquette, Xavier, I mean, any of those teams can make a deep run in the tournament.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I've been saying for a while, I think one of these Big East teams could make the Final Four. I'm not sure about winning it all, but and I'm right now. I've been more on Marquette than I have the rest of them. UConn has looked like they turned things around. They went through a little slump there, kind of maybe first into January, first part of February, something like that.
Yeah.
And I do think they've kind of turned it around. And Stephanie's talking about yes on Marquette. It needs to be a number 2 seed. I agree. I've been saying that, for the last 5-6 days. And I told a bunch of bracketologist friends of mine who were all kind of in talks and groups and Twitter and stuff. And I told them all, I said, I'm telling you, Marquette needs to be on that 2 line and not Baylor. And they're all sticking with Baylor.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see where Creighton falls as well, because Creighton coming into the season was pretty much the sexy pick to win the conference. And they had a good season, but I don't know.
They had an injury, too, in the middle of the year and cost them a little bit, too.
It'll be interesting to see where they get seeded tonight, as well as the fact that who they get put up against. In that
I think Creighton's going to fall somewhere in that 6 seed line would be my guess.
I was going to say 5, but yeah, I could see 6 as well.
Yeah, somewhere in that 5-6 range, I think is where Creighton's going to fall. Would be my guess.
In the tournament again, that's a tough spot to be in, because you fall in that 5-12 matchup. At least one of them's going to go down, if not 2 of them. Probably.
Yeah.
So,
all right, so let's move on to Mountain West Conference. The Mountain West Conference, I think, has, they struggled a little bit down the stretch. New Mexico struggled down the stretch. Nevada lost like their last 3 games or something that they played and kind of struggled down the stretch. But the tournament, Utah State Just trying to think which Utah school it was. Utah State and San Diego State made the finals, made pretty good runs. Boise State won a game or two that was pretty critical for them, beating UNLV, I think, in order to get in. Do they get 4 teams in? And what do you think on how the conference tournament went?
I think the conference tournament was really good. It was great to see Utah State make that run. Utah State solidified their spot. San Diego State's in, Boise State. I think the 4th team comes down to Nevada, and if they're above the cut line, it's going to be real close. I don't know. That's all on the committee. I mean, I feel bad for New Mexico because they seemed like they had a really good season, but they just faded badly down the stretch. And that's the worst time to fade when you get to like late February, early March. That's the time you can't be playing your worst basketball.
Right.
And they faded. But
yeah,
Nevada,
poor New Mexico. I mean, New Mexico started the season out like 18-2 or 16-2 or something, and they ended February 1-6.
Yeah, that's what.
Now they did lose House, one of their guards, for a while, which hurt them. But I was really hoping to see New Mexico get in, but I just don't see New Mexico getting in now. I really don't. Nevada's going to be right on the bubble.
Yeah, they're right.
And I'm really hoping that Nevada gets one of those last spots.
I mean, I couldn't say one way or the other what they do. If I had a choice, I would put them in, but we'll see what the committee does tonight. They're most likely going to be, if they're in, they're going to be playing in Dayton on Tuesday or Wednesday night.
And just so you know, Stephanie Yates, that point right there that I just put up on the screen that you've got is one of my points that I've been saying to these bracketologists all week long. They smoked Baylor in December.
I remember that game
early in the season.
That's right.
And have the head-to-head matchup. So if they're 8-9, if you've got them bracketed in the metrics and they're 8-9, Marquette's got to get the spot.
I remember that game too. That game was at Marquette, and I remember doing a preview for that Big East Big 12 challenge. And I thought it would be a close game, and I think I predicted Baylor to win by probably 3 points, 4 points. I remember turning on the game that night, and I saw Marquette just destroy him, and I was shocked. I thought for sure it'd be a close game either way, even if Marquette wins. But Marquette destroyed him in that game.
They did. They killed them head to head. I mean, you got to give the spot to Marquette if you ask me, but I'm not a bracketologist. I'm just a talking head.
We're going to find out in a couple hours.
Yeah, we will. All right. So also last night, the Pac-12, Arizona and UCLA played a big game. UCLA was without one of their guards for the conference tournament. Clark was out. And, they still made the run to the finals, had a shot last night to possibly win it. Arizona pulls it out 60-58. What did you think about the Pac-12 conference? Was there a team in there that made a run enough to get in so there's more than 2 teams, you think? Or what do you think about the Pac-12?
Yeah, I think you're going to get 3. I think Arizona State will get that final spot, the 3rd spot. I think they're right on the bubble. They'll probably most likely, again, like we've talked before, be playing that first 4 in up in Dayton this week. UCLA and Arizona probably both 2.
USC?
No, UCLA.
Does USC sneak in?
I would say no, but I'd say no. But
you think no? All right.
Yeah, I would say no, but I mean, I'd have to go back and look at their resume again and see. I don't know. I don't. USC to me, it seems like, not to be me, not harp on them. It seems like it's the same team every year. They have a really good team, but they just kind of like leave you disappointed. It's just like they have talent. They lose games they shouldn't lose. And I think that's what's going to eliminate from being the tourney. I mean,
it's like the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, true. Yeah, it's true. Yeah, it's like you get your hopes up, and it's almost like and they get high level recruits, and they have talent on the team, but every year. Now, granted, I guess I shouldn't say this much because was it 2021 when they made their run in the tournament with COVID? They made that run to the Elite 8 that year and lost to Gonzaga, and that was a great run. But then, of course, I could be wrong. Maybe they will be in this year, but I'd say Arizona and UCLA will make deep runs. I think Arizona can make the most to do the most damage in the tournament, just because UCLA's injuries in the last. They have another player get injured in the tournament. Clark's out for the season. I just think that's going to be too much to overcome in the tournament. Arizona, hey, I mean they had the team last year and they fell apart in the tournament. They lost, I believe, it was in the Sweet 16. I think they have as good a team this year, maybe not as good, but I think they're more equipped this year to make a run. This could be the year they finally break through and make it back to the Final Four. It's been ages since they've been there, so
right.
That's
all right. So
it's about as far as.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I will say this: I think USC is probably above the cut line, but maybe not. Maybe you might be right on that. They are close to that cut line. Both of them. Arizona State is too as well. All right, so let's get to a couple of conferences today. The SEC finished up today. Alabama looked really strong, beating Texas A&M. Vandy made a decent run at the expense of the team. And let's see, what else would there be talking points in the SEC? How would you sum up the SEC tournament and some of the teams in there?
Vandy had a great run in the SEC tournament. I didn't see the game. I was shocked they beat Kentucky. I really was. Barry Stackhouse has done a heck of a job there with, and he's done a heck of a job. I was shocked at how well they did in the SEC tournament. A&M is a team that came on the second half of the season. They were left for dead back in December, and they lost to Alabama.
A&M before the SEC tournament, A&M was 16-3 since Christmas.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, Alabama, clearly one of the top 4 teams in the country, clearly the number 1 seed. Now let's see if they can get to the Final Four. I mean, can they do it? I think you're going to see an SEC team in the Final Four, whether it's Alabama or not. To someone like Arkansas make a run, Auburn, Kentucky. I mean, a lot's going to depend for the SEC teams on who they're. What bracket they're in, what region they're in, and who they're.
I want to say this about Alabama. Not many people are talking about Nate Oates as a Coach of the Year candidate. I mean, having to deal with the outside stuff that Nate Oates has had to deal with and still keep this team together is pretty spectacular, if you ask me.
Yeah, he's done a great job. I mean, in that regard, keeping it together and keeping them just focused solely on basketball with all the outside distractions. I don't know. I think a lot. It's going to depend for, like I said before, for each of these SEC teams on who they get. What region they're put in and who is there going to be their immediate opponents.
Because the SEC is going to have several teams in that 6, 7, 8, 9 range.
Yeah. And,
so, those are tough games.
I will say Tennessee, I think I don't see him doing much, unfortunately, just because Ziegler got injured. They've been trending downward the last month. I just don't see them going.
I don't either.
In the tournament.
Matter of fact, I would say A&M's probably got the best shot, and maybe Missouri, depending on the draw. On
Missouri's another team that's really
surprised
me that had a great season and they weren't really expected. Not much was expected from them this season. They had a great season. I mean, same, just along the same lines as Vanderbilt. Had a great season. I mean, I think Missouri could get to the Sweet 16 if they get the right matchups.
That's what I'm saying. If they get the right matchup, I think they could get to the Sweet 16. Missouri could. Don't you, John?
Yes, I did hear Auburn on a deep run, and I almost wanted to laugh.
Okay, here's my theory on that. So a lot of times, like a team like Auburn came in last year, they kind of were trending a little bit downward toward the end of last season. I mean, they were number 1 team in the country late January, and they came in. They ran into a Miami team that was they were hot. They played really well. They spread the floor. It was a bad matchup for them. It was, but I think the opposite could go for Auburn this year. They're not playing as well, but if they can get that first win under them, now it all depends, of course, on the matchup, who they play in the first round. First win under them, they could catch fire, and I think they can make a run.
Now, do you see them as a 9 or a 10?
I think they're going to be a 10.
10. So it'll be a 7 for the first.
7 for the first game, and then it will most likely be the 2 for the second game. But, we've seen that 2, that's 2, depending on which 2 it is, it could be right for the upset.
Boyd's a 1.
Yeah,
the Boyd's a 1.
Yeah,
the 9 seed is.
I really think this is. I really think this is a year though when it's. I think there's probably 20 to 25 teams that can make it all the way to the Final Four, and then another 8 to 10 that can win it. It's just that open. It just really is. I mean, I think you're going to see it's just craziness in the next couple of weeks. There's going to be so many upsets. I remember last year it was craziness for the first couple of weeks, and then we got to the end, and it was all the blue bloods: Carolina, Duke, Kansas, and Villanova. But I don't think that's going to be the case this year. I think you're going to see a couple of the normal names you're used to seeing in the Final Four, but then 2 other ones where you're going to be like, how did just because it just breaks down. That's what happens. So I mean, look at St. Peter's last year; they made the Elite 8. So
right.
I mean, it's something crazy like that. I think is going to happen this year as well. So,
well, let's finish up the power conferences with the Big Ten today. You got Purdue and Penn State. I want to talk about 2 of the near bottom teams made pretty good runs in the Big Ten tournament. Penn State made a run all the way to the championship game today. I think that solidified their spot in the NCAA tournament. And then Ohio State made a heck of a run. They are not getting in the NCAA tournament. They're like 16-19 or something, but they made a heck of a run and made it to the semifinals, and worth mentioning. So, Steve, what's your thoughts on the Big Ten? The Big Ten's been topsy-turvy all year long, if you ask me. Teams that you think would be up there, Michigan State, Indiana, Maryland, none of those made it to the semifinals.
Yeah, the league's been rather strange this year. I just think Purdue's a step above everybody else, and there's a couple teams at the bottom that are a step below everybody else, and then the whole league is pretty much just clumped in the middle.
It's all the same. I mean, it seems like.
Last weekend I was watching a game in the last day of the season, and I believe it was Northwestern, whoever it was, Maryland, one of the teams, they said if they won, they were the 2 seed in the tournament, and they lost, they were like the 9 seed. I was like, that's just a crazy jump up or down to make just one game because everybody was so close together in the standings.
Oh, I know. Yeah, absolutely.
Penn State's made a great run in this Big Ten tournament. They're definitely in the field, and they're a dangerous team. I mean, they can shoot well. I mean, I wouldn't want to play. I wouldn't want to play them. So it'd be interesting where they get seeded. Probably, 10, 11, I would assume. But they're going to be a tough out. I don't think Michigan is in. I think Rutgers is probably a first 4 team. Ohio State would have messed up everybody's bracket had they won the last 2 games and won the Big Ten conference tournament.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
The key with the Big Ten though is I don't know who you trust to make a run in the tournament. Maybe Purdue.
I don't either.
I mean,
I was thinking my 2 teams before the Big Ten tournament was Indiana and Maryland, but they just didn't I really thought maybe they might make a run, at least to the Sweet 16 or something, maybe Elite 8 or something, but I'm not so sure now.
Yeah, I think probably 2 make it to the Sweet 16, one makes it to the Elite 8. Purdue could make the run to the Final Four, but they're going to have those guards play really well. And if they get the wrong matchup, I mean, I think a good, not even a solid tier SEC team could just, or even a Big 12 team could just knock them off in a heartbeat. So
Travis, Kennesaw State did upset my Liberty pick, so knocked them off by 1. So
I don't know if they're going to win. I don't know if they're going to win at all. I guess we'll have to see who they get matched up against. But yeah, Big Ten, it's hard to trust any of those teams. And I think another thing, I mentioned on your show before, that grind of a couple months, like they go through in that Big Ten schedule, they're playing each other, 2 games a week against all this, they're beating each other up, and it's just like it's like a 12-round boxing match. And when you get to the tournament starting, the NCAA tournament, they're just beat up and tired, and they're just like, I think, like I said, you saw Ohio State lose a couple years ago to Oral Roberts in the first round. I think that could be due to happen a big upset to one of those teams in the first round. We'll see.
Travis also wants you to do a bracket.
Oh, he does?
Okay. He does. He's been calling for it. So,
okay.
Yep. I know I'm throwing it all off right now, but yes, I just wanted to bring that up now that I see Travis up here.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Travis runs a podcast and been on our show, so he's been on with us. So he sent out a tweet earlier, wants to do a bracket with us, I think. All right, so I'm going to get to the conference winners. The OVC was the first one, and I know my pick didn't win it. I'm trying to remember who won it.
Oh God,
OVC?
Tennessee Tech, was it?
I'm trying to remember who won it.
I believe it was Tennessee. Was it Tennessee Tech? I believe it was.
I thought OVC was
South SEMO.
Oh, was it SEMO? Okay, then they beat.
It was SEMO.
They beat
Southeast Missouri.
They beat Tennessee Tech. I was watching the final game. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I was trying to think about. I thought I had these memorized, but apparently I don't. So. All right. So the Missouri Valley was Drake. They beat Bradley. The A10 was VCU.
They just won today.
The A-Sun was Kennesaw State. The American West Conference was Vermont.
American East Conference.
The American East. What did I say? West?
You said West.
Yeah. Vermont is now in Washington.
Yeah, Vermont.
I mean, American East Conference is
Vermont. Pretty much runs that league. Vermont just seems like they win that league every year. They just
The AAC is being played right now, and Memphis is up on Houston. Houston's playing without Marcus Sasser. Houston's pretty much got their 1 seed locked up. So Memphis, I would think, is already in the tournament as well. That'll probably be the only 2 teams out of the AAC would be my guess. Let's see. The Big Sky Conference, I can't remember who actually won that one. It wasn't my pick, so.
Let's see. You're doing great
job on this, right? Yeah. Yes, I know. Hush.
What's the next one?
Montana State was not one that done it because that's the one that I picked.
Right.
The Big West was UC Santa Barbara.
Yep.
Conference USA was FAU. The Colonial was College of Charleston. The Ivy was today. Princeton won. The MAA, I don't know if that's the MEAC. I don't know. I don't know. The MEAC's the other one. Anyway, the MAAC is Iona.
That's the MAC. It's the MAC, and the MEAC is the Howard.
Yeah. The MAC, MAC was Kent State.
And then the MEAC.
The MEAC was Howard.
Yeah.
Howard won that one. The NEC, the winner was actually Merrimack, but Fairleigh Dickinson is getting the transition, the AQ, the bid to the tournament.
Yeah. Patriot League was Colgate.
Yep, Patriot League was Colgate. Southern.
Could you pick against them?
The SoCal was Furman. Summit League was Oral Roberts. Sunbelt was Louisiana. Of course, West Coast Conference was Gonzaga.
And the WAC was Grand Canyon last night.
Yeah, and the WAC was Grand Canyon last night. That is most of them. I did skip a few that I didn't pick the winners on.
Because you're like, no.
Yeah. I can tell you who didn't win. I can definitely tell you that.
Well, let's see. We'll see now if Charleston can make a run. Now they won the CAA and they were ranked in the top 25 for the majority of the season. They only lost. I think they were 31-3. They only lost a couple games. So we'll see. It's going to be interesting to see who they're matched up against. I think Charleston could definitely pull an upset over.
I do too. Oral Roberts is a good team.
Roberts is another team.
Kent State's got a good team. A bunch of shooters.
True.
Yeah, Kent State. They can put some points on the board.
Colgate's always got a good team. I mean, they're going to be tough to play. And even watching today, Princeton, whoever wins that Ivy League is always a tough matchup for whoever they come up against in the NCAA tournament. And they've been known to pull some upsets in the past. So I've seen Princeton play a couple of times this year in person. They got a good team. So, I mean, I don't know how far down they're going to be, seeded, but 14 maybe. But they could be a tough opponent for someone. It's going to be a great tournament. Like I said, there's going to be a lot of chaos and a lot of upsets. So it's going to be interesting.
All right. So kind of quickly, I'm going to look at, we've had a couple of bracketologists on our show recently. One of those was JBR Bracketology. And I'm going to kind of give him a shout out. He's been on our show. This is his final list. Okay. So I'm going to not run through the whole thing, but his top seeds, his number one overall is Alabama. He's got Alabama, Kansas, Houston, Purdue. The 2 seeds are Texas, UCLA, Arizona, and Baylor.
Okay.
And he's got Marquette, number 9, is the 3 seed.
Okay.
His 3 seeds are Marquette, Gonzaga, Kansas State, and Connecticut. And 4 is Tennessee, Xavier, Indiana, and Virginia. That's his top 4 seed lines, okay? His 10 seed lines – John Roberts, he has Auburn as a 9 seed, by the way. His 10 seed lines is Iowa, Penn State, Illinois, and USC.
Okay, USC.
That's 10 seed lines. His 11, which is the last 4 or 6 seeds in, is Rutgers, Mississippi State, North Carolina State, Arizona State, Providence, and the last team he has in the conference is Oklahoma State. That ought to make Stephanie Yates happy if she's still with us. But that's his last team in is Oklahoma State. He's got Providence and Oklahoma State, the last 2. His first teams out are Nevada, Wisconsin, Vanderbilt, and Pittsburgh.
Okay. So it's kind of interesting on his that he doesn't even have Clemson on the first 4 out. I thought they'd be right about that line, but
his next 4 out is Clemson's number 5. Clemson's 5.
That makes sense.
Oregon, North Carolina, and North Texas.
Yeah. Okay.
Are his next 4 out.
Yeah. Carolina was right. Carolina was first 4 out, and then of course they lost the other night to Virginia. So yeah, I can't see them even being as that close to the cut line as they were originally, because with other teams coming on strong. So. But yeah, I mean, I agree with the majority of that. I of course, I'm saying before USC would be out, but if he has him as a 10 seed, I definitely could see him in. Maybe it's me. I just didn't think they had that great of a season, but And all
right, so I'm going to check. I'm going to check another guy here. We recently had Northern Kentucky bracket guy on with us as well, and I'm going to check and see if he's updated his bracket today. He may not have put out his last update yet. I'm not sure.
Houston's made
Projection Sports has their final bracket out. And let's look at their top seeds. Houston, Kansas, Alabama, Purdue. 2 seeds. I got to look at the 2 line. They have Marquette in there. They have UCLA, Arizona, Texas, and Marquette.
There you go.
3, they have Baylor. They've switched it. Baylor, Gonzaga, UConn, Kansas State. 4, they have Xavier, Indiana, Iowa State, and Tennessee. All right, their 10 seed line is, which would be like their last 4 guys, would be Penn State, Utah State, USC, and Auburn.
Okay.
And then the 11 seed line, they have, which would be the last 6 in, would be Mississippi State, NC State, And then the 2 play-in games would be Arizona State versus Rutgers and Providence versus Nevada.
Okay.
They have Nevada in.
Okay. Okay. There's about 4 to 6 teams that are all right there on the cut line, and I can see it going either way, with the committee tonight. So.
Yeah, I can too. Exactly. I mean, there's several different ways you could go about it. I think those last 3 or 4 teams is going to be really difficult to,
True.
To get, to be honest with you. Yeah, I don't think Bracket Dom has his out yet. These guys are all finishing up their last, there's
2 games still on, so they still have another hour. So.
Yeah, they still got another hour or so.
Like I said, I don't think this Houston game, whether they win or lose, doesn't really matter. I mean, they're a number 1 seed.
They've come back in this game, so they are currently down 7 with 12-19 to go.
Okay, I think regardless if they win or lose, they're still a number 1 seed. I mean, whether
right.
I don't know how they even the committee determines. I don't think they. Well, I mean, say maybe instead of sending, they've already got it set. Whether they send them to the East or the West as the number 1 seed, that's a whole other story. But we'll see.
So on the bracketology stuff, I suggest that you go look out. I'm gonna give a few people a shout out. So there's a lot of people look at like Jerry Palm and Joe Lenardi and the guys that's on TV. Yeah. And if you want to do all that, you can. But I suggest go to Twitter and look up T3 Bracketology, look up 801 Bracketology, look up JBR Bracketology, look up Bracket NKY, and look up Bracket Dom. He's one of the best. And all the other bracket guys will tell you that he's one of the best. I think the last 2 years he has gotten everybody right and within 1 seed line.
Yeah, all the bracketologists, I've given them shout outs the last month or so, and they all do a great job on Twitter. Appreciate their knowledge because the guys on TV, just because they're on TV doesn't make them experts. And sometimes you scratch your head at what they're picking. I mean,
I love Andy Katz. Okay, Andy Katz does a great job reporting. He does a great job covering college basketball. I really love Andy Katz. He's not the best bracketologist.
No, I mean, like I said, the guys on TV, you take what they're saying with a grain of salt. The guys on Twitter do a much better job. They're really in the know. They per se watch the games, where I think some of the guys don't on the networks, at least not as much as they should. So.
All right. I wanted to kind of throw out some stuff on the bracketology there a little bit. Give a few people some shout outs on the show. All right. So I'm in the group that I think Nevada should be one of the last teams in. I think that their season, they don't have any bad losses. And a lot of these other teams that are close to that bubble have some bad losses. You take Vandy and you take Clemson and Arizona State, and there's a few teams, you know what I mean? Like there's some teams in there that I think have some bad losses, and I don't think Nevada does. And that's the same thing. It's the same thing with NC State. NC State doesn't have any quad 3 or quad 4 losses either. And if I was doing the bracketology, they would probably be 2 of my last, 4 teams in.
I definitely have NC State in. I think they had a great season. They showed well in the ACC tournament. I mean, Nevada, like I said, Nevada I think could go either way. Yeah. I'd like to see them get in.
They can. I'm just saying if I was going to put it down. I'd like
to see them get in for the Mountain West sake. That'd give them another team, and that'd be great for the conference. I remember we were talking back a couple months ago about maybe they get 5 in, more likely looking like probably 3 or maybe even 4. But NC State, I definitely can see. And I all thought all along that Pittsburgh would be in. I think they're real close to the cut line as well. They're in that group of,
they are. Pittsburgh's in there. The problem with Pittsburgh is they got some bad losses.
They do, and they got that bad loss here. They lost badly to Duke. Now, I mean, Duke's Duke, and they won the ACC tournament.
But they lost to Florida State.
They did.
And you know what I mean? Like, they have some bad losses to some bad teams.
So, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see if they make it in the tournament. They're most likely, if they do, they're going to be seeded and playing in Dayton on Tuesday night.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. There's a few teams. Clemson fans are going to be irate if NC State gets in over them, and I get it. I really do. I get it. I've got some that are with the fanboys that we're with, and I get why they would be upset. I really do.
They beat them 3 times. Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah.
And not just beat them 3 times. They won 3 games by a combined score of 65 points.
Yeah.
And beat them.
Yeah.
So, I mean, 2 of the 3 games was 25 plus in points. Yeah. Beatings.
Yeah,
one was 25, one was 26.
We'll know shortly what's going to happen, but I think I still think Clemson's going to be in a.
And I understand Clemson fans, if you're saying, okay, if NC State and Clemson are in a group of 5 teams and you're going to put 1 in or 2 in out of those 5 teams, then the head-to-head matchup between those teams, Clemson fans are saying, should win out.
True.
However, you got to look at Clemson's. They have 4 really bad losses. 4. They have a terrible loss to the last place Atlantic 10 team, Loyola. They have a terrible loss to the last placed ACC team, and that's Louisville. And they also have a terrible loss to the second to last, maybe third last SEC team, South Carolina.
Yeah, I'm looking at their schedule.
Plus, they lost to Boston College, which is not a good team in the ACC.
Yeah.
So they have 3 really bad losses and 1 bad loss. And that's the difference. And NC State has none of those bad losses. They have no quad 3 or quad 4 losses. And that's the big difference.
Yeah, you're talking losing to a Louisville team that went 4-28.
That's brutal. Yeah. I mean, it's just brutal. It's brutal.
One of their 4 wins was against one of their 2 conference wins, and one of their 4 wins was against Clemson. So,
yeah,
that might be the clincher right there. It was on the road.
That's brutal.
Yeah, it's still bad.
I know, but it's brutal.
It's like losing. It's like same in the Pac-12 is losing to Cal this year. Cal only won 3 games.
3 games, exactly. That's like saying putting in Arizona State, who's on the bubble, or USC, and they lost to California.
Yeah.
You just can't do that. Yeah. I just don't see it. All right, so that kind of wraps up the bracketology side of it. So let's look ahead to March. What do you guys, how do you think March Madness is going to go? Is there going to be a lot of ups? Do you think there'll be a lot of upsets early in the bracket, John?
Yes, I think that this is going to be one of those just insane first 2 days. Maybe even the first 4 that I think that this will be it'll be nuts to even try to pick. I mean, I don't know if you need to be able to pick if you just need to just flip a coin picking these things.
Coach Drew, I told you I picked Duke to win the ACC.
So
I told you.
The first 2 weekends I think will be nuts. I think those will be the first 8 days, the first part of the whole tournament.
Thursday through Sunday, both times. Yeah. I think the first Thursday to Sunday especially is going to be crazy. When to whittle it down to 16 from 68, starting first Tuesday night with the first 4 games and Wednesday night. But I think that first weekend is going to be full of upsets, and a lot of crazy results. Then you get to 16, you're going to look at it, and you're going to see probably 6 to 8 teams you would have thought, and the other 6 to 8 you'd be like, how did these teams, just make it? And like they just, and a lot of it's how you're seated.
So will we see one bracket that's got like a 10, a 12, a 13?
I think for sure. I think for sure this year you'll see something crazy like that. Yeah, like last year when you saw North Carolina play St. Peter's in that, I don't know, it was in the East or whatever region it was, and it was the 8.
Yeah, it was like a 15, 8. Yeah.
And I think you'll see something like a 7 playing a 9 or something in like the regional final in one bracket. I think it was something crazy like that. You will see. I don't think a 15 is going to come through again, but I think you'll see like a 7 and 9 playing the regional final where you're like, and it's a good team. The 7 and 9 could both be good teams from, some of the Power 5 conferences. They had good years, not great years, and they turned it on in the tournament. I think that could definitely happen.
I will say this. I think there is a pretty decent sized list of teams that a lot of people will not be talking about that can win games. Oral Roberts, Kent State, Iona, Vermont could knock somebody off, I believe. FAU, of course, which is going to be a higher seed than a 11 or 12 or 14 or something like that. But FAU could knock off some teams. I'm trying to think of who else.
There's going to be a lot of teams.
Drake is another team that I think could knock off some teams.
I think any team that's not seeded first or second, maybe third, from
College of Charleston.
Yeah, from fourth to 7th. So 4s against 13, 5s against 12, 6 against 11, and 7 against 10. Any of those games could go either way.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I just trying to mention a few teams.
They're almost like pick 'em. I think they'll almost be like pick 'em games depending on spreads and stuff like that. It'd be like 50-50. So
yeah.
That's why I said coin flip here.
Yeah,
true. It's like you're gonna have a coin flip.
Pretty much a coin flip. I think years past it was like 7, 10, 8, 9 game was a coin flip, but I think this year 5, 12, 6,
5-12. I'm telling you, pay attention and really look at that 5-12 line, and even the 4-13 line.
Yeah.
Take a look at it, especially if you've got teams like Tennessee and Indiana who are possibly on that 4 line, who have had some up and down years, up and down season.
True.
You just don't know which Indiana team, the team that beat Purdue twice, or, the team that loses to, you know what I mean? You don't know which Indiana team you're going to get.
Yeah.
And Tennessee, you're not sure, which team you're going to get, especially now with Ziegler out. So, I think that 4-13 line is one to pay attention to as well.
I agree.
And of course, the 6-11 and 10 and 7-10. I mean, those are always games that you kind of look at. But I think those are 2 seed lines for sure that need to be paid attention to, is the 4-13 and the 5-12 this year.
I agree.
Now, how many of those will make the Sweet 16 and win that second round game?
That all depends on it. You're basically,
what I mean?
You're basically at that point waiting. You're hoping for an upset in the other game. So like the 13 that would normally be the 4 would playing the 5, the 13 is then playing the 12. So that's what you're kind of, I think that's what you're kind of looking at there. So you're looking.
So do I think that 1 or 2 of those 12 or 13s could make the Sweet 16? I do. I think that could happen this year.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it could have as well. I mean, I think it's going to be a lot of crazy results, a lot of upsets. I think you're going to have at least 1, maybe 2 brackets. I mean, 2 regions where you're going to be like the team coming out is like, even the team coming out of the region winning it is like a 5 seed or 7 seed or something like that. So.
Right.
I think then, of course, the other you'll get 2 of the 1 or 2 seeds to advance to the Final Four. You're always going to have a couple of favorites there, but I think you're going to have a couple of teams that you're not used to seeing to make it all the way to Houston for the Final Four.
All right, so we got a chat question here. Let me get this up real quick. I saw Coach Drew asked a question. Who is the hottest team?
going into the tournament.
Yeah.
I'd have to
Who's
say
the hottest team going in the tournament?
I'd have to say it's close between Duke, probably I'm trying to think Alabama, one of those two. I mean, they've both been playing so good lately.
Texas A&M. I know they just lost, but they were 16-3 before they lost today. So
yeah, I mean Duke had a great run. They in the last couple weeks.
Actually 18-3 because they had won 2 games in the conference tournament.
Yeah,
before today.
I'm trying to think of anybody else who's really in the last couple of days who's come on strong. And those are the 2 I can think of off the top of my head that are playing really well, peaking at the right time. So
he's wanting you to say Duke. That's the reason why he asked that question. I know Drew, so he's happy that you said Duke.
Well, they haven't. I mean, they've won. I think they've won like 8 of their last 9. I mean, they through the stretch run, they have won the majority of their games, and they just won the AC Conference tournament. So, I mean, they really have been playing well. I mean, they were kind of in a lull for about a month and a half ago at the end of January. But he just wrote up Alabama's been killing it. Yeah, they've been. I mean, Alabama's been straight and been right at the top all season.
They have. Alabama's hot. I'd say if you have to ask, if you're asking me who I think the hottest or best team is in the country, my answer is Alabama.
He put up 9. He put up 9 straight. So I guess 9 Duke's won 9 straight. Yeah, maybe it's Alabama.
Yeah. I mean, that would be my answer. But if I'm going to throw out a couple other teams, I do believe Duke has really come and been playing well. I think Texas A&M has played really well the last 2 months of the season.
You could say Texas too. You could say Texas.
Texas has played really well the last part of the season. I think Creighton went through a stretch where they were playing well. They've kind of cooled off. Marquette has been playing really well. I would give Marquette some props up there in the top as well. Houston, we'll see what happens with Marcus Sasser. I'm not sure.
Yeah. I believe he'll play in the tournament. I just think it was a precaution today. Better be safe than sorry. I mean, the game really doesn't mean that much. I mean, Houston, of course, wants to win the conference tournament title and all, but they're already number 1 seed. There's nothing's going to change by them losing the game. And
Stephanie, I'm a Kentucky fan, so I can tell you I feel you on OK State definitely not being one of the hottest teams in the country. Kentucky's not either. So
hey, I'll do you one better with one of the not the hottest teams, and I'll say Louisville right now. I think they're not really that hot either.
No,
they're probably very cold.
It's going to be a long.
They're in a freezer. They're in a freezer somewhere. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, there you go. See,
it's going to be a long road back for Louisville. 4-28. Oof, that's just mind-boggling of how how bad of a season. And Cal was 3 wins, 3-29 or something. It just
I was getting ready to throw Cal out there. I was going to say UC Berkeley.
Yeah, Power 5 team that just
yeah. All right, so kind of to go with the hottest teams in the country, let's talk about our contenders. How many true contenders do you think has a chance to really win the tournament, Steve?
I think there could be like 10 or 12 teams to win the tournament. I really do. I mean, I just think it. There's so much parity this year, and I think any of those top 4, well, the top 4 seeds would each region's gonna make it 16, but I think you could pare down a few off that. But I think there's about 10 or 12 that can win it. Any in that top 4 bracket, East, West, Southeast, Midwest, one of those teams could win it. I really do. I think 10 or 12 teams win. I think 25 teams can make the Final 4. I just think it's that crazy of a season. It's that open where even a 7 seed, kind of like if you remember 2014, I think a UConn was a 7 seed and they ended up winning the title. Yeah. And they were good.
Yeah, they did.
And they came on strong at the end of the season with Kemba Walker. And I believe that was that the year with Kemba Walker? That might have been the title before that. But anyway, regardless,
I think it was.
Yeah, they were good, and they were 7 seed. I think a team like a 6 or 7 seed could get to the Final 4 this year, and it wouldn't be that shocking depending on what team it was. So that's what.
Yeah, I think a team like Creighton could have a shot to get to the Final 4, which will be in that 6 or 7 range, probably 5 maybe. Creighton could. I think a team like Indiana, you just don't know which Indiana team is going to show up.
Duke could do it from a
I
far
think
down
Duke.
because they're not going to be. They're not in the top 4.
Definitely make a Final 4 run. I don't think they're going to win the title, Drew. Just in case if you're on, if you're still on with us, But I do believe that they could make a Final Four run. I do. The way they've been playing, I do believe they could do that.
Drew put up Arizona won the national championship in 1997 as an 8 seed. Mike Bibby, Miles Simon. They weren't an 8 seed that year, Drew. They were like a 4 or 5. I'll have to look that up. I'm almost positive they weren't an 8 seed. They were about a 4 or 5 though. They were a higher seed, but they weren't an 8 seed when they won the title. But they did get hot during the tournament. They beat Kansas. They beat North Carolina. And I'm trying. Who did they beat in the final?
Beat Kentucky in the final.
The final, that's right.
Beat Kentucky in the final.
Yeah,
Trust me, I remember exactly
that one.
They definitely weren't an 8. They definitely weren't an 8 seed though that year. They were about a 4 or 5 seed in that region.
Yeah, I don't think they were an 8 seed.
They were an 8 seed. They were like a 4 or 5, and they did end up in the championship. Yeah, but that could surely happen. A 4 or 5 seed could catch fire and win.
If you look at the metrics too, just to see what kind of the metrics of what these teams are at, as far as ones that have won the tournament in the last several years, I think everybody has to be within. I think the top. I think it's the top. If you're in the top 10, most everybody's in the top 10 on offense or defense. If you're not in the top 10 on offense or defense, you end up being in the top 5 on one and in the top 40 on the other. The only team that didn't do the top 40 in both, I think, was Butler when they made their run, and it was something that's just nuts. Crazy like that, where they were the only one.
They had 2 really good players on that team.
They did, but they were
Gordon Howard and Mack, the guard.
But if you're looking at the metrics and you're looking at the statistics, you could go through and just kind of look at who's got the top offense and the top defense, and you can kind of go through and just look at each of those sets, and if they're in the top, 10 of each, most likely they're making a Final Four run, and your championship's going to come from there. There was, again, it's Butler who kind of offsets everything by being outside of both on those 2. And then I think, like I said, if you're not one, you got to be kind of a
really good at one,
a hybrid. Yeah, you got to be really good at one. And if you're a really good scoring team, you got to be kind of pretty average. I mean, you can't be below, a certain level on the other, or otherwise, more than likely you're not making it very far. And and that's kind of the way you can go. You can go through and probably pick your winners just doing it that way.
Yeah,
that's very true.
So my thoughts on the contenders to win it all. I mean, if I had to pick to win it all, I'm going to say the top 1, 2, or 3 seeds are more than likely going to win it all. Is there a chance that a team like a Duke or Creighton or could make a Final Four run and stuff and get there and be like a Butler or a UConn 7 seed or something like that from years past? Sure, I think that's possible. I really just don't think, right now I'm leaning towards Alabama. I'm just going to be honest with you. My true contender, I'm leaning towards Alabama. I know a lot of people are going to say Kansas, but I've just seen Kansas when they play.
Very difficult to win back-to-back too.
When they play the top tier level teams, I've seen Kansas get beat by 20 on 3 or 4 occasions this year. And I just can't, now, could they make a run and get there? Absolutely, they can. I'm not saying they can't by any means. I'm just saying, for me, I would lean more towards Alabama. The only game that I seen Alabama play this year that I scratched my head at and wondered where Alabama was the Oklahoma game. That's it. One game.
Every team has a game or 2 each year where they just don't show up.
Yeah. You know what I mean? There was one game this entire year.
The only problem with the tournament is when you do that one time, you're out. So
yeah. That's right.
You don't show up one night. You're gone. So I mean, I can see. I think at the end of the day, once you get to the Final Four, it's going to be at least two of the favorites. The top 1 or 2 seeds that are there. Could it be all 4 like 1 or 2 seeds that are there? Possible, but I don't think it will be this year. I think it'll be a couple outlier teams that are like a 4 seed and a 6 seed, or a 3 seed and a 5 seed, and then a 1 or 2 seed there as well. But I can see Kansas. I think a lot depends on Bill Self. If he's there coaching and he's okay, he's healthy, I think they definitely need him on the bench. As for Alabama, I mean, they've been consistent and good all year. Yeah, I mean, wouldn't surprise me to see him cut down the nets, and wouldn't surprise me to definitely see him down in Houston. So
Stephanie Yates said she looked it up, and Arizona was a 4 seed.
Yeah, I thought it was either 4 or 5. I remember when they beat Kansas and they went on that run. Yeah, it definitely wasn't an 8 seed. Yeah. So, and Houston, of course, a lot depends on Marcus Sasser. If he's healthy come next week, I would put them in that group that could make a long run and win it all too. Because people got to remember the Final Four is in Houston. It's gonna be a big advantage if they get in that Final Four. It's gonna be like it's a couple home games. It's not to be. Not to be.
Oh yeah, absolutely. If Houston gets there, yes. If they can get to the Final Four, it's played in Houston. It's played in Houston technically at their home, at their home gym, but it's in their city. Okay.
I mean, you saw it. If you remember back in
they could sleep in their home beds if they would.
2005, Illinois made that run, and the regional was in Chicago. And they beat, I think it was Arizona to make the Final Four in 2005. They did, yeah. But that game was like, I remember seeing it on TV, and it was like, if there's 20,000 people in the arena, 19,900 are all Illinois fans. So it's like, it's a home game, and a regional final was a huge advantage. So a lot's gonna depend on that too tonight. You'll see where the teams are placed, and where some team might have an advantage based on geography in terms of if they can get to a certain point. Another example of that was George Mason back in 2006 when they made that crazy run to the Final Four. And they played it in D.C. And it's just Northern Virginia, D.C. is nothing. It's like half hour, an hour. So it's like they pretty much they never made that run. So they had all their fans sell out that arena, and they had almost 2 home games for that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they sold it out. I mean, they had tons of fans there every time they played.
Even St. Peter's last year, I looked to go into those games, and St. Peter's was playing up in, I think it was in Philly. And they were in Jersey. I mean, the ticket prices were outrageous because all the St. Peter's fans bought them up because they had in the tournament. And I was like,
I know.
They pretty much had 2 home games there. So a lot can depend on that, depending on where you're seated and where you're going to play the games. So, it'll be interesting to see what happens. We'll know shortly.
That's for sure. Hey, we are an hour and 40 minutes away from the reveal?
I think it's at 6 Eastern, so or they don't really start at 6, maybe 6:30, but I think they start the show at 6. So
yeah, it's there's like 45 minutes, I think, on the in accordance to the NCAA website. It's like 45 minutes or less.
Yeah, they start the show. Maybe they dilly-dally for a few minutes, but those probably before 6:30. You'll know some of the practice.
Yeah, well, they released the 4 number 1 seeds first.
True. Yeah,
and then they go down and talk about it for a minute, and then they
take 5 more.
Then they start on the next breakfast. Then they start on the next bracket, and that kind of stuff is how they usually do it, I think.
True.
All right, Steve. Closing thoughts. What are your thoughts? What are you excited for the most? I guess.
I just excited
this time of year.
Yeah, just see some great games. I think we're going to see a great tournament. A lot of upsets, a lot of surprises. Starting even Tuesday and Wednesday night with the first 4, and then those are always really good games because usually, like, most of those games are, of course, you have a couple 16 teams playing, but also
they're usually pretty equal. They're usually pretty equal games.
Are equal, and they'll put 2 Power 5 teams in there that that are pretty equal, that have had solid seasons, but they're playing for the right to move on. So, and then of course Thursday and Friday you have 16 games each day, and then Saturday and Sunday. It's going to be chaos, and then of course a little bit of a break before the Sweet 16 and the Final Four. So it'll be a fun next week of basketball. And
it's fun, but it happens so quick. In 2 or 3 weeks, it's over.
I still think the best games in the tournament are always the Sweet 16 and Elite 8 games, because just the most likely the Elite 8 games, just getting to the Final Four for a lot of teams.
Yeah, that Elite 8 game is probably the best game in the.
It's just tournament. Getting to the Final Four for so many teams. It's just such a monumental accomplishment. And then of course if they can close the gap and win it, but I think those are going to be the best games. Not this coming weekend, but next weekend. Yeah,
I agree. Yeah, I agree with you. it's so much fun. It happens all so quick. This first weekend coming up now is going to be just so much fun to watch and flip and catch and watch all the games and watch the scores. You're going to have buzzer beaters and you're going to have upsets, and you might even have a team or two that's a 12 or 13 to make a run to the Sweet 16 or more, and that's always fun to watch. And then you'll get to that Sweet 16, that Elite Eight game, where it's just, powerhouse to try to get there. It's one of the best games in those 4 games that weekend is the best games in the tournament, I believe, minus the championship game. The championship game, I think those 4 games are even better than the semifinals in the Final Four.
I agree. Because I think just to get that right to go to the Final Four it makes it a dream season for so many teams. And then, of course, you have to get over the hump and win the semifinal and champion in the final game. But just getting to the Final Four, I think, is just such a monumental accomplishment for a lot of teams. So that's why it's such a there's 4 games that weekend to be so big.
Yep. I agree with you. Steve, we appreciate you coming on with us and doing this. We may get Steve come back in about 3 weeks to kind of wrap up the Final Four and preview the championship game on a Sunday.
Looking forward to it. And I'm sure we can't, even if we had all the money in the world, you couldn't predict who's going to be playing in that championship game.
No, it's going to be pretty tough to predict. If I did, I might take my act to the circus or something. Make some money.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty hard to predict. Once I get the bracket later tonight, I'll throw out a Final Four on Twitter to make my prediction to see who I picked for the Final Four. And then
Kansas State is one of those 10 or 12 teams that I was talking about in those top 3 seed lines.
I think I had 2. I think I got 2. I usually pick it every year. I think I got 2 Final Four teams last year. So usually I'm about I can get 2.
When the brackets come out, I'll do some picks and stuff. Yeah, and put them out.
Picking off 4 teams in the Final Four
is tough.
It's really tough unless you're picking.
I've done 3 a few times in my life, but I'm not sure if I've ever done all 4.
No, I don't think I've ever done all 4. It's because you're always going to have that one team that hardly anybody's going to pick. So.
Oh yeah.
Unless it goes chalk and all 4 1 seeds get in or something, but that usually don't happen.
True.
It's usually maybe 3 out of 4, but not necessarily all 4.
Yeah. There's usually one team that nobody would have picked. Yeah.
Yep. I agree with you, Steve. Like I said, we appreciate you being on with us. We'll kind of close this up for today for our pre-selection Sunday show here. Guys, it's about a little over an hour and a half away for the selection show. So we'll find out pretty soon. And Steve, we appreciate you being on with us. We'll kind of wrap up the season. This is the 3rd time Steve's been on with us. So we'll kind of wrap up the season with him, the Final Four Sunday in between the semifinal games and the championship game, and kind of wrap up the Final Four and preview. All right, man. Thank you, Steve.
Have a great rest of the weekend. Not much left, and enjoy all the selection show and all the games in the next couple weeks.
All right, man.
All right, man. All right. Thank you, Steve.
You're welcome.
That's always fun to have Steve on with us.
Yep, it is.
Yeah, that's the 3rd time that he's been on with us this year. And he's going to come back on one more time for us to kind of wrap up the season. He is a John Wooden Award voter, so he does get to vote for the Player of the Year. That's pretty cool. And he runs justcollegefootball.net and justcollegebasketball.net. So check those out.
Oh, yeah. Yep, definitely.
And you can follow him at Steve Hiegel. He does all kinds of stuff for college football and basketball on Twitter as well. So you can follow him there as well, guys. All right. I'm going to talk about our prize picks real quick. You can do our prize picks. Use our code CSCAST for your initial deposit, and they will double your money up to $100. So if you put $50 down, you'll get $100 to play with. If you put $100 down, you'll get $200 to play with. And all you have to do is use our code. It'll help us as well when you initially sign up for CSCast, and you can double that money. We appreciate you. Another thing I want to get to real quick is our Home for Our Troops. It's our nonprofit organization that we are asking all of our fans to give to this year. And they build homes for injured and wounded vets. And they've been doing it for over 20 plus years. And so if you're an injured or wounded vet and you want to build a home, you live in Arkansas and you want to move to California, they will build you a home in California. For every dollar that you give to them, 90 cents of that dollar goes towards building these homes and rebuilding their lives. So we ask that you give to Home for Our Troops at www.hfotusa.org.
Yep. And final little update on the Memphis and Houston game. With just under 3 minutes to go, Memphis has a 12-point lead, 72-60.
What's the update on the Purdue game? Do you have that?
I do not have the Purdue game up at the very moment, but I can find it pretty easily. Let's see how fast we can find it.
I've got, actually, it's close, 64-58.
That is what I have too.
2 minutes and 40 seconds to go.
Mm-hmm.
Purdue is ahead by 6 with 2 minutes and 40 seconds to go.
Houston needs to basically just hit shots and get fouled. Hit shots and get fouled. And they just did. They hit a shot and they got fouled. Nope, never mind. It was a timeout. Hit a shot and then there was a timeout. So they're down 10. But
all right, guys. So this week on our show, College SportsCast, talk about a few things that we have coming up. So on Tuesday, we'll be doing our hot topics. We'll be talking a lot of bracketology stuff because the brackets will be out, and maybe we'll even talk about doing some picks and some brackets with some of our friends. Travis was on. He was asking to do stuff like that. So maybe we'll add some of that in there on Tuesday. And then on Thursday, we'll have a special with us. Landrum Roberts from Jocks 94.5 FM radio is going to be on with us.
mm-hmm.
He does 3-man front and morning Jocks
yes.
on the Jocks 94.5 FM station out of Birmingham. And that's a radio station that has helped start Paul Feinbaum, so you may recognize that radio station. And they've been a mainstay in the sports radio station stuff for a long time. So,
yes, especially for college football, it is one of the top